Things are starting to heat back up as spring is starting to heat back up. I'm Thomas Frank Carr, Ryan Snyder here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. Got breaking news if the big flashy graphic didn't tell you. Ryan, what is our breaking news today?
Well, did things ever get cold this year? I don't think they really. I think it's always been warm. No. As I enjoyed a beautiful spring day last week. But let's get to the point. Kari Jackson, Penn State picks up their third commitment in the class of 2024, their second linebacker in this class as well. Kari is currently at West Bloomfield in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan. 3-star prospect by On3. He has an 88 overall rating, which makes him a high 3-star, kind of one of those guys that's I always call bubble prospects, right? Kind of right on the bubble there between 3-star and 4-star. But yeah, Penn State's, I think obviously when they got Speca, that's a quality middle linebacker prospect. And I think Kari Jackson is similar situation there. 6'2-ish, 6'1.5", 6'2-ish, 220. A true Mike from everything I understand, or at least Penn State expects him to be a true Mike. Had 103 tackles last year, 26 tackles for loss, 3 sacks for West Bloomfield. I believe he spent, it was, I think his sophomore season at IMG, either sophomore or freshman. I think it was freshman season at West Bloomfield, sophomore at IMG, and then he came back to West Bloomfield, and I would expect him to finish there next year. But yeah, Penn State lands quality prospect out of Michigan. One thing that was interesting is Michigan and Michigan State offered early, didn't seem to be pushing crazy hard towards the end, which was interesting to me. I don't really know the situation for that, but Penn State's happy for it. They've always had Kari certainly in the mix of a handful of middle linebackers that they liked a lot, and situation here where they feel like they couldn't pass him up. So commitment number 3 in the class, and Penn State's very happy to have him.
Old heads and old school lovers of football rejoice. 2 Mike linebackers in the same class, Ryan Snyder. What a day we live in. Tell us about how that dynamic works for Penn State here. These are 2 good players. They want them both, right?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I would say, when you look at their depth chart, you have Tyler Elston, who entering his 4th season now. Could he come back for a 5th? Yes. Will he come back? We'll see. It's certainly possible. But he's, getting, I think when you get a bunch of guys in their 4th, 5th, 6th year now, of course, with the COVID rules, you want to add numbers. Then you have Kobe King entering his 3rd year. And I think Penn State just sees 2 quality middle linebackers they don't want to pass up on. Of course, they still have Keon Wiley then, who just finished up his 1st year. And then, of course, Tamir Robinson just enrolled. So there might be a year or so where they have 5 middle linebackers on roster, but that won't last for long regardless. And then I don't know what they see in the 2025 class or anything like that. But when you can get quality guys and you also only have 2 guys committed right now, this would be the 3rd, of course. There's no reason, I think, to hold off or slow play or look around. They find a player they like. They have plenty of scholarships to give. This should be a class that certainly reaches 25, and I think is in a good position to pass that. Why would you pass up a player like Kari Jackson? So we know Cincinnati, Wisconsin. I think he went to Tennessee for a visit. There were a couple of schools in the mix. I know he was talking about Stanford, Missouri, UCF, or a couple other schools he was interested in. Like I said, Michigan State offered early. Didn't seem to be pushing all that hard down the stretch, something to maybe learn more on. But Penn State does that with Pennsylvania guys all the time, and then they turn out to be great players. And it's not easy scouting and recruiting and finding perfect hits. But Penn State's very happy to have him, and be curious to see how he and Anthony Speca here progress over the next year.
Yeah, I'm fascinated eternally by trying to understand what are the metrics and what are the things I should be looking at on film to know, okay, this player is a Penn State target. Because for the first 6 months with Manny Diaz, and I think last year specifically, that class of linebackers, my thought was, okay, you got to be able to run to be a Penn State linebacker. Tamir Robinson, at 230 pounds, used to play safety. As the biggest guy, he could still run. Kari Jackson, good speed, but I would say more of a traditional Mike linebacker. Speca can run, but may not be the traditional freak that Penn State has recruited. And that's the thing I'm always interested in is the level of player in that linebacker room from an athletic standpoint has certainly gone up recently. And then when you get guys like Kari Jackson, and this is going to, I always hate this. Sounds disrespectful, and it's not meant to be. It's like he's a good prospect. He's a very good Mike linebacker prospect. I love his film. But when you look at the athleticism metrics, it's like, okay, so this doesn't match up to what Manny Diaz was recruiting earlier. So what are the common threads? What are the common through lines that I can make to know, okay, adjust what I'm thinking as this is something that they want, and there's no budge on that. And at linebacker, like, they're all very smart players that understand the game. Kari's film from a discipline and intelligence standpoint is off the charts. He's incredibly smart. He is a run destructor. Do you think that that's a part of the conversation as far as we want to have guys that are, run disruptors, and that's something we want to bring into that Mike position, given all the athletes around them?
Yeah, I think so. I think also just, last year they really attacked outside linebackers. They got two great outside linebackers last year, and Tony Rojas, and then you get it late. You had a Kavion Keys. And then look, they still are in a very good position with other outside linebackers this year's class. You have Jamonte Waller out there. He has an Alabama and Georgia offer. Yes, he came up for an early visit, but those offers are going to change some things, guys. I'm not as optimistic about that one as we were coming right out of that visit. We'll see. But you also have Chris Jones, and Chris Jones will be an incredibly important prospect. He's the number one, I think, one of the top guys in Virginia, top 2 or 3, and someone they'll be pursuing. So I think, yes, to answer your question more so, yes, Penn State has struggled sometimes against the run, really packing the box, slowing things down. That's part of it. I think it's more so just numbers perspective as well. They feel like they have attacked the outside linebacker really well. You have Abdul, of course, in there. And now they need to reload on guys that they really feel like can, get it done between the A and the B gaps. And both of these guys should be able to do that. So what I'll be just really curious to see, honestly, moving forward, is just kind of what Elston does. Because I know this is a totally separate conversation, but like this, would he come back for another season after this? And I think the battle between him and Kobe King and how playing time and things like that shape up. And maybe is that something Penn State's worried about or wondering? Are those two going to always continuously rotate routes? Would one of them be curious and looking elsewhere in the transfer portal era? So I think that's another thing always too in the transfer portal era. Penn State's always going to kind of add numbers to play it safe because they don't, like right now, quarterback, for example, they'd really like to have another guy in there. They don't want to be in a situation where I'd say playing walk-ons, but then you got Dominic DeLuca too, who's kind of a swing. Dominic was obviously excellent this year, so they have plenty of depth there at linebacker. But I think it's a situation where it's February 28th. You got 2 commitments in your class. You have a quality player here, and you have 22, 23, 24 scholarships still to give in this class. Why would you not take them?
I mentioned my concerns with his speed to start, but let's get to all the things I like, and there is a laundry list of things that I really like about Kari Jackson. Let's start first with talking about run destruction, and one of the things I want to highlight here is his ability to play through contact. I complain if a guy is too fast and he just beats blocks because he's faster than everybody else, and then I complain if a guy doesn't have enough speed, but that can't ever have it the way you want, right? You're never going to see a perfect prospect on tape. And what I love about Kari Jackson is he plays through contact really well. He knows how to take on blocks with a proper shoulder. He knows how to fight through to get into his gap. And then, of course, he doesn't overrun a whole lot of plays. I think he's a pretty disciplined football player. His vision is excellent. His ability in, watching on the highlight tape, but also watching, he's a guy that matches up pretty well with what you see on the highlight tape is what he is when you turn on the film and you watch a full game. He does not make a lot of mistakes against the run game. He is very smart. He plays through trash really well, and he finds the football. Some of the concerns, obviously, are that he finds the football 2 or 3 yards down the field on the high school level instead of blowing everything up. He does have a lot of tackles for loss, as you mentioned before this past season. Really impeccable film. I want to stress that one more time. He's a really good run defender as a Mike linebacker, and I see enough coverage instincts here where he is not going to make mistakes. I think he's going to be a good coverage player for what he's asked to do as a Mike linebacker, and I don't know that he's going to be a weakness of the defense as long as he continues to progress athletically to meet the standard to be on the field as a Big Ten linebacker and play in coverage, third down, all those things. Because, he is, again, a smart football player. I think he has the agility and the hip mobility to turn and run in coverage and play in a good zone system. So my concerns up front, I wanted to give those to you, but then tell you overall, I think this is a really good, well-rounded prospect. And we talk about Mike linebacker. there aren't a lot of guys that can step on the field right away and contribute early at that particular position. And I'm not saying it's right away, but Kari Jackson could be early in that process. He might not be a third-year guy that is playing. He might be able to, from what I see on film, adapt pretty quickly to the college level and start contributing at, some place earlier along the timeline. I think especially from Anthony Speca, who is, as we discussed on his breaking down his film, a little more raw, instinctively, a little more aggressive. Kari Jackson kind of is the complete profile as a player. So that'll be interesting to see how that works.
Yeah, great student too, great kid. Man, I've always enjoyed getting to know him. Man, he's been great to the media. So I'm always a little biased, right? Those guys that know how to handle the media and are good to us. So I appreciate that from him. But I know he's a great student too. I don't know if he's a 4.0, but he's certainly one of those honor roll guys. Great off the field. Another guy that fits this program well. So curious to see how him and Speca push each other moving forward. Man, that'll be interesting. They'll. That'll certainly be a situation to watch in the years ahead. And I also want to just make sure, we mentioned this yesterday on the recruiting pod, but Keon Wiley, I feel like is kind of getting overlooked a little bit with the excitement of Tamir. And now you got these guys. And of course, Elston and Kobe are making impacts on the field. But Manny Diaz spoke incredibly highly of Keon this year, calling him one of the smartest players in that linebacker room. So there seems to be confidence in Keon moving forward. He is a true Mike right now, which that I didn't see Keon being a Mike coming out of school. Of course, he played defensive end primarily. So I know this is about Kari Jackson. I don't want to get off too much on a tangent on that, but I think Manny Diaz feels really good about his linebacker board. And why wouldn't you right now? You got two more quality guys coming in. You got a Chris Jones still out there that you can potentially add. And of course, you're coming off of a class with Tony Rojas, Tamir Robinson, and Kavion Keys. Looking pretty good right now compared to especially where we were a couple years ago where people were questioning the linebacker room and is it up to what it used to be in previous years? There's certainly a lot of talent there now.
Certainly good to add an old school throwback Mike linebacker with some new school tricks and coverage. That, I think, is a pretty good description of Kari Jackson. LBU, adding another talent to that group as Ryan just outlined. I'm Thomas Ryan Carr. He is Ryan Snyder. Please, I say this all the time, but subscribe to Blue White Illustrated here on YouTube because you don't want to be missing out. We're heading into the spring season. There's going to be some commitments coming up soon, not just this one, because that's how this part of the season works. And if you want to be on the cutting edge of breaking news, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, for you get the early access to the information from our insiders in the Lions Den Premium Message Forum. And then, of course, when the news breaks publicly, we'll be here first with it, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com on YouTube. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. He's Ryan Snyder. We'll be back with the next commitment, the next breaking news from Penn State football.